1. The Straw Hat Pirates' power. It's an obvious truth that even though 12 factions are participating in this final race, only one will surely obtain the One Piece, and that's none other than the Straw Hat Pirates, right? Although we already know this well, let's peel back every layer of the Straw Hat Pirates' true power with me, this cat. Why did Luffy become an emperor and not Law or Kid, who also defeated Big Mom? First, let's talk about Luffy's main pirate crew. Although they only have 10 official members, all 10 are seen by the world government as world-level threats. They are led by a troublesome captain who has caused countless disturbances around the world to date. It seems that in our eyes as readers, Usopp or Nami aren't strong enough to fight against the powerful big names in other Emperor crews. If so, how can they be a solid support for their captain, right? However, the value of each member isn't just about fighting, is it? Without Nami, a genius navigator, could the Straw Hat crew have come this far? Or would they be lost somewhere? And Usopp, as he himself once said, the sniper's role is to support his comrades, and Mr. Longnose has always done this well, like saving Luffy and Law from Sugar during the battle in Dressrosa. Therefore, to be more precise, they are truly dangerous because they excel in their roles, not just based on their combat strength. We can take an example from the Pirate King's crew. All the members we know so far are outstanding individuals like Shanks or the Dark King. But what about Crocus's case? He's clearly not a great fighter, but without him, the Roger Pirates wouldn't have endured until they obtained the One Piece. So all 10 members, whether weak or strong, will each have their own role in this final battle to help Luffy achieve his dream. As for their specific strengths, this cat won't mention them because you masters, the audience, probably know even better than I do. The power of an emperor, allies, and territories. But of course, just 10 outstanding individuals gathering together couldn't turn Luffy into the emperor he is today. Individual strength is a necessary condition, but it's not enough to touch that feared-by-all title. The emperors are the most infamous pirates in the world, reigning over the entire second half of the Grand Line, so they must have a powerful force behind them, enough to make the Marines wary of declaring direct war. That is also what Law or Kid lacked to step up to this position, but Luffy possessed it right from the beginning of his journey. You must know, every place Luffy set foot, from islands to kingdoms, all faced some political problem, like being invaded by pirates, ruled by unpopular tyrants, etc. Each time, the Straw Hat crew saved a kingdom and turned them into reliable allies, like a territory under their protection. Looking at the facts first, currently only 2 kingdoms directly fly the pirate flag and receive the Straw Hat crew's protection, Fishman Island and Wano Country. And what does Luffy get from them if a major war breaks out? About 5,000 elite samurai from Wano Country. This number might have decreased due to the battle at Onigashima, but it's still a significant figure. As for Fishman Island, although there are no specific figures on King Neptune's army, the population here is up to 5 million. The new Fishman pirates had to sabotage it from within to be confident enough to bring 100,000 troops to destroy the island. This means the island's official army must also reach this threshold, or at least half of it. Otherwise, how could they protect the kingdom, right? So this cat will temporarily assume they have 50,000 elite troops. Not to mention kingdoms like Alabasta, Dressrosa, or other small kingdoms, and soon possibly the Army of Giants. Clearly, soon just the supportive power from the kingdoms will be enough for Luffy to shake the world. The Straw Hat Grand Fleet, 5,600 members. But clearly the thing that made Luffy famous as an emperor must include the 5,600 members who pledged to serve under Godfather Luffy. That is, the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. The beautiful pirates led by Cavendish, 75 members. Bartolomeo, captain of the Barto Club, 56 members. Sai, of the Hoppo Navy, 1,000 members. The 4-person alliance, Ideo, Blue Gilly, Abdullah, and Jeet. Leo and the Tontada Army, 200 members. Hyruddin and the 4 members of the new giant crew.
Or Lumbus, with the 4,300 members of the Yanta Maria Grand Fleet. That was the story in Dressrosa. This number may have increased by now, except for Bartolomeo's case, whose fate is unknown after daring to mess with Shanks and being shot down by Yasopp recently. This force is clearly more than enough to make the government fear the Straw Hat crew. All these pirates are big names in the world, like Cavendish, who has the incredibly powerful Hakuba form, killing people in an instant, or Bartolomeo, with the Bari Bari no Mi ability, providing near absolute defense, enough to hold a part of the battlefield. Regarding Bartolomeo's story, this cat, personally think he is still alive, because there's no reason for Oda to create such a huge fleet as a force for Luffy just to abandon it. But besides them, the Straw Hat crew still has some other small forces supporting them. Other potential allied forces. The Sun Pirates. After Jinbei withdrew from the Big Mom Pirates and joined Luffy's crew, it's natural that both Jinbei and Fishman Island are on his side, so there's no reason for this crew to be on the opposing side. Although the Sun Pirates don't have any terrifying names left, they are still a battle-hardened force sufficient to contribute to Godfather Luffy when needed. Germa 66. Besides the Sun Pirates, at the Whole Cake Island arc, there was another force that could be considered an ally if truly needed, and that is the Scientific Kingdom Germa 66. However, I'm not too sure about this force, because if there's truly a world-changing battle, will they participate? If they do, I personally think Judge will choose to side with his son, and in that case, Luffy will gain a biological army along with 5 Power Rangers with special abilities. Wouldn't that be too powerful? Kid and Law. In the Onigashima battle, 2 pirate crews, Kids and Laws, joined Luffy in defeating the old generation. However, a comeback for Kids seems unlikely. It would be strange to survive a devastating blow from Shanks like that. Kid's story isn't like Bartolomeo's, because that shot could destroy the ship. Bartolomeo's chance of survival is higher because at least he has loyalty to Luffy, so he's somewhat liked. But he still has to pay the price for his foolish actions, so Usopp's father probably spared him. But Kid is likely done for. Law, Heart. But the other one, Law, is much more feasible, because after encountering the Blackbeard pirates, Law was rescued by Beppo, so his survival is certain. Law is also the person who has been with Luffy since he entered the New World until now. Not to mention, he was the benefactor who saved Luffy in the Marineford battle 2 years ago, so it's reasonable if Oda lets Law fight alongside Luffy in the final battle. If Luffy's final opponent is Blackbeard, there's even more reason for Law to contribute his strength to defeat him. More than anyone, Mr. Tiger wants to avenge his humiliating defeat. Law's strength is probably beyond question. He was the key to finishing off Big Mom and even came close to beating Blackbeard, not getting one shot like Kid. So that's another addition to the Straw Hat crew's power. The ultimate move, Boa Hancock and the ancient weapons. Finally, the force this cat is thinking of is the Kuja pirates of the pirate empress Boa Hancock. Why not? After being attacked by Blackbeard, Amazon Lily is almost no longer a safe island. And with the 7 Warlords system abolished, it means she is no longer protected by the government. At this point, the most logical haven for Boa is Luffy. And among all the current, former Warlords, only Boa has no clear role in the story yet. And since she wasn't mentioned among those 12 people, there's clearly only one answer. Boa will side with Luffy. The power of Amazon Lily will surely be a good support for the Straw Hat crew. Most of the island's inhabitants are skilled warriors capable of using Haki well. Although Haki has become a common power now, there are still many people who cannot use this ability. So an army that can use Haki is clearly something extraordinary. Not to mention, Boa possesses strength comparable to Mr. Crocodile or Jinbei. So having her on the team is necessary for Luffy to have a spectacular total combat match. But gathering these 60,000 plus troops is not easy, and it would be more suitable for a chaotic battle between factions rather than the final war deciding the Pirate King. In my personal opinion, this army might participate in the battle against the government, assisting the Revolutionary Army in overthrowing the world rulers, creating a new era. And by then, the world will need true liberation, which is also when Blackbeard and Luffy, 2 people with different ideals, compete for the greatest treasure and decide humanity's fate.
Besides military force, another factor that might contribute to making the Straw Hat crew's power stronger than ever is the ancient weapons. Poseidon, Shirahoshi, she is very close to Luffy, so if she can control her power, it's as if Luffy already possesses one ancient weapon. Pluton, it is sleeping deep within ancient Wano country. When Wano opens its borders, it will awaken, and clearly, if the borders aren't opened, how can Momonosuke join the war, right? So that's two ancient weapons with the power to destroy the world, enough to make other forces wary, right? The absolute advantage, the key to Laugh Tale. That's just the power story. But inherently, Luffy is one of the 4 people aiming straight for One Piece, so let's see what advantages he has over his rivals. First, the most important factor is Nico Robin, the only remaining archaeologist who can read the poneglyphs as well as the closest key to opening the door to Laugh-Tale. As you masters know, the fastest way to get to Laugh-Tale is to read the 4 road poneglyphs. Each one points to an island. When the intersection of the 4 islands is connected, that is the final destination that all pirates aim for, Laugh-Tale Island, which holds the Pirate King's One Piece treasure. And up to this point, Luffy has obtained 3 of the 4 stone slabs. Plus, having Robin who can read them, he is clearly the person who is closest who can touch One Piece. According to some speculations, the last slab is located on the island of the giants, Elbath. So if that's true, when he successfully conquers Elbath, it will also be the time he gathers enough to conquer the greatest treasure. Of course, saying he is the closest might face some controversy, because if we're talking about the people who know the most, it must be Shanks and Buggy. Not because they are stronger or anything, but because they were on Roger's ship at the time they learned the location of the final island. This means both of them know where it is, and with Shanks' strength, it's probably just a matter of whether he wants to or not. As for Buggy, it might be a bit harder. Therefore, if we ignore this factor, Luffy is the one currently closest to the great treasure.
2. The power of Cross-Guild, Buggy the Clown. And now, let's move on to the next Emperor. The next character this cat, will analyze in today's video is Buggy the Clown. Who else deserves this second spot more than him, right? After the greatest war in history at Marineford and escaping Impel Down with Luffy, this new Emperor's power has been updated quite a bit. From a small pirate crew in the East Blue, he became a warlord with his delivery company, and now he is an Emperor with Cross-Guild, the first force daring to issue bounties on the Marines. To explain why he reached this level, we must mention the disastrous misunderstanding by the Marines regarding Buggy's 2 subordinates, Mihawk and Crocodile. 1. Subordinate Crocodile, Mr. Zero. When Cross-Guild was announced, the clown's followers turned the poster into a grand announcement of the 2 subordinates under the clown. The first is Crocodile. Although he appeared quite early and his bounty was frozen at a small 81 million berry, when Mr. Crocodile was unleashed, the story completely changed, with a figure rising to 1,965,000,000 berry. This Mr. Crocodile is so strong, yet back in the day he was beaten by Luffy like a chump with a nonsensical counter. It's no exaggeration to say that among the warlords, Crocodile could be considered one of the strongest. In fact, this cat, personally think if he had appeared later, Mr. Crocodile would only be second to Mihawk among the royal warlords. To back it up, Crocodile's power comes from his Suna Suna no Mi, sand fruit, a Logia type. Although the system isn't as highly rated anymore, it still has its own place. When he arrived at Karai Bari Island, we witnessed Crocodile take out an entire marine fleet advancing on the island with just a few waves of his hand. It may sound easy, but only those with real strength can do that. That's not all. This character is also very influential. Just by speaking, he got Mihawk to cooperate with him. If not, Buggy wouldn't have become an emperor today. As for his strength, let's go back in time with this cat, to see what this warlord did. Considered a dangerous criminal by the government who wanted to erase his existence from the world by imprisoning him on level 6 of Impel Down. Escaped prison with Luffy and joined the Great War. Despite facing countless big names like Doflamingo or Mihawk, after the battle, he barely had any serious injuries. Ignoring the foolish move of trying to take on the old man, Whitebeard, Crocodile wasn't afraid of Mihawk either. More daringly, he even took on Akainu to protect Luffy from escaping Marineford. And as you masters saw, the audience, Mr. Zero was perfectly fine, with no problems at all. This just shows how lucky Luffy was to beat Crocodile back then. If Oda didn't carry hard, we wouldn't have One Piece to watch today. Speaking of Crocodile, we must also touch on the criminal organization Baroque Works. Although it disbanded after Mr. Zero was captured, with everyone going their separate ways, Cross-Guild still has 2 members, Dasbones, Mr. 1, and Galdina, Mr. 3. Mr. 3 isn't really worth mentioning as his strength is only average. As for Mr. 1, being imprisoned on level 4 wasn't considered a high threat from the government. But as seen when he joined Crocodile in attacking the Marine fleet besieging Karai Bari Island, he also contributed. This confirms that his time in prison has forged a much stronger Dasbones than when he fought Zoro.
Most terrifyingly, walked away from the Marineford War without a single scratch.
despite fighting both Division 5 commander Flower Sword Vista and even Crocodile. Wielding the world's #1 Black Blade, Yoru, it can be said he outclasses almost every opponent. If it came to a life-or-death battle, Mihawk would probably only lose to an Emperor. He's not afraid of any Emperor's subordinates. 3. Other supporting forces. There isn't much information about this character, Mihawk, so let's move on to the next force supporting Crossguild. Although not very strong in quality, the quantity cannot be ignored. The force of prisoners who escaped from Impile Down. This means most of them are much, much stronger than Buggy. There are even individuals ranked on par with Mr. 1, Mr. 3, or even characters from level 5 with much higher bounties than Dawsbones. You have to understand that this fan club force is really something. Just overwhelming with numbers alone might be enough to terrify the enemy. It's easy to understand why. Despite being extremely angry about Buggy becoming an emperor, Crocodile and Mihawk agreed to temporarily overlook it to use this entire massive army. It would be foolish not to use this resource, right? This crew still has a few kids like Kabaji and Moji who are totally useless, and Alvida is just a moving flower vase, not worth mentioning. You masters think that's all? Not yet. According to some recent information, after Garp's assault on Hachinosu, the only person who escaped from Blackbeard's grasp wasn't just Koby, but also Moria. Right here, can you masters think of anything? Although not very impressive in terms of strength, Moria would also be a quality addition to Crossguild if he really joins. His zombie army will contribute to making this force even stronger. And is the door open for Moria to join Crossguild? It's definitely bright, which is why I, this cat, am mentioning him here. First, let's look at Moria's relationships. As a former warlord, Moria has no animosity towards the other two. And of course, more people means more power, which is even better. Not to mention, the person who saved Moria was Perona, a crewmate extremely loyal to this former warlord who also has an ambiguous, flirtatious relationship with Mihawk. So Crossguild opening its arms to welcome Moria into the crew is probably just a matter of time. Maybe even Weevil too. Disadvantages and advantages of Buggy. It's still the story of the race for One Piece among the Emperors. Perhaps among the 4 most powerful pirate crews right now, Buggy is the most disadvantaged in every aspect. Although they have outstanding individuals like Mihawk, in terms of overall strength, the prominent names are still too few. They don't have any alliances either, so if they want to wage war against other emperors, adding Moria is very reasonable. That's about strength. As for the road poneglyphs, Buggy doesn't hold any, nor does he have anyone who can read the ancient script, so the clown is completely in the dark on this front. No ancient weapons either. If anything, having been a crewmate of the Pirate King gives him a slight advantage. As mentioned before, after learning the exact location of Laugh-Tale, Buggy suddenly fell ill, so he and Shanks couldn't go to the final island. If Buggy really knows where it is and how to get there, that is, if he actually remembers, and now that his forces are sufficient, then it's just a matter of charging straight to the final island and rule it.
The power of the red-haired pirates, Shanks. And now let's move on to Buggy's best friend, red-haired Shanks. When talking about the red-haired pirates, even now, at the very end of the story, we still don't have much information about this crew. The true strength of each member has only been leaked bit by bit through small details appearing in various arcs. Talking about this crew now, we must definitely talk about Shanks, who is currently considered by the netizens to be the strongest of the 4 emperors. He doesn't need a god devil fruit like Luffy, nor does he need the power of 2 fruits like Blackbeard, and of course, luck like Buggy's isn't what helps him stand firm in this position. In the pivotal period between 2 generations, what red-haired Shanks has is 1 severed arm and true strength that can rival his predecessors like Whitebeard. Just saying it isn't very convincing. Let's briefly go over his achievements. He fought an earth-shattering duel with Mihawk and was considered a rival by the world's #1 swordsman until he lost his arm. This is the most solid proof of this emperor's supreme swordsmanship. But swordsmanship is just a secondary part. What truly makes Shanks terrifying is his abnormally strong haki. For example, when he stepped onto Whitebeard's ship, his haki was so strong that it damaged the ship, the Moby Dick, which had been through countless major and minor battles in the New World just from the pressure he exerted. It also knocked out many of Whitebeard's crew members. Immediately after, he clashed swords with Whitebeard, evenly matched in one blow, even with just 1 arm. One more detail. If in the Fishman Island arc, Luffy could only knock out 50,000 members of the new Fishman Pirates, if Shanks had been there with just 1 blast of Conqueror's haki, all 100,000 of them would have been knocked out, without Shanks needing to lift a finger. Not long ago, at Wano Country, Shanks unleashed his Conqueror's Haki from miles away from Wano, and a Marine Admiral like Ryoka Gu was completely paralyzed, pissing blood, unable to do anything. It's unknown how many people in the Straw Hat crew could withstand the enormous pressure from Red Hair if they faced him directly. Not to mention, with just a single attack, Shanks sent both Killer and Kid down to meet their ancestors. Even though before that, Big Mom had to unleash almost her full power to overwhelm Kid in the battle with Law. We all know all comparisons are flawed. Due to different terrains and battle scales, it cannot be denied that with that blow, Shanks was truly a cut above Big Mom. And Kaido? Let's go back in time to see what Shanks did. Before going to Marineford to stop the war, he had to drop by to block Kaido first. If not, perhaps the only one left behind would have been Whitebeard, or maybe no one at all. But that's just the captain. His first mate, Ben Beckman, is no less impressive. Beckman is rated as the smartest man in the East Blue, more so than strategists like Kuro or Nami. Hey, don't underestimate their IQ just because they seem useless now. Both were outstanding minds that the East Blue produced. In terms of strength, although not much has been shown, he is certainly proficient in both types of Haki. Reaching an advanced level is surely normal. The only question now is whether he has Conqueror's Haki. As in the Summit War, just pointing a gun at Kizaru's head made the Marine Admiral scared, stiff, raising his hands in surrender because he didn't want to fight Beckman, even though the opponents he had clashed with before were just as dangerous. Like Marco or Whitebeard himself, he still showed fear at Ben's gunpoint, which shows how dangerous Red Hair's first mate is. The next person to be mentioned is Yasopp. Although he has even less screen time than Ben, he recently had a spectacular display by shooting and blowing up Bartolomeo's ship. This cat, don't know what to say. Saying too strong all the time gets boring. Yasopp's peak is his marksmanship, so it's normal for him to possess advanced observation Haki. It was briefly shown when Yasopp could sense that the Kid Pirates had fully recovered after the battle at Onigashima, even though he was still on the ship and hadn't met them. Other than that, that's it.
Shanks' allied forces. As for supporting forces, Shanks also has some quality allies, like Oigui, Fuga, Purupuru, and Linaria. All are well-known captains in the New World and have all gathered under Shanks' flag. Of course, we must mention the giant pirate crew. They are also considered allies of Red Hair. As for how strong they are, let me, this cat, remind you, sometime before when Loki, Prince of Elbath, intended to marry Lola, how confident was Big Mom? If that alliance had been formed, she could have overthrown the other emperors and become the Pirate King. That is the legendary tale about the giants, enough to speak to their stature. Just recently, it was they, Dari and Brogy, who came to Egghead, rescued the Straw Hat crew from the 5 monster old men, the 5 elders, and escaped successfully. This shows that Big Mom's claims were not without basis. But after this arc, who will the giants side with, Luffy or Shanks? That's for Oda to answer. I have no idea. What I can answer is the assessment of the red-haired pirates' advantage in the One Piece race. It's the story of being a former crewmate of Roger's crew, which I won't repeat. But currently there is a contradiction in my assessment. If Shanks really knows the location of Laugh Tale, why doesn't he just go straight there and take it? With Shanks' strength, that should be as easy as turning over his hand. Not to mention, why did Shanks request the copy of the Road Pony glyph from Kid? It's clearly not for Luffy, and it's not clear if anyone in his crew can read it. Plus, since Shanks declared he was joining the race for One Piece, he has stopped at Elbath, the place said to hold the last stone slab. Is there any connection here? Could it be that Shanks forgot and has to recollect them? Or do the 4 Road Pony glyphs hide a more important key to opening the door to Laugh Tale than a simple intersection from 4 islands? This is just my speculation, but if we set aside the Pirate King's crewmate advantage, then in terms of strength, his crew is at the top. As for the surrounding advantages, pony glyphs, they are only in the 3rd place, only better than his best friend, Buggy, for possessing 1 Road Pony glyph, but nothing else.
The power of the Blackbeard Pirates, Marshall D. Teach. Let's get to the last emperor, Marshall D. Teach, Blackbeard. He is the last captain of an emperor's crew to appear among the 12 characters, playing a decisive role in the rest of the story. Blackbeard's crew is like Shanks. Although they appeared quite early, there isn't that much information. So now whatever I, this cat, know, I'll tell you, masters, the audience. Kicking it off is the ringleader, Captain Marshall D. Teach. Bounty 3,996,000,000 berry. His physique is also in the tough as nails category, a big name in the story. He was punched straight in the face by Whitebeard and survived, and took the full brunt of Law's Room and continued to fight Benbi. We must admit one thing. In terms of physicality, even the clown, all four emperors are people with extraordinary physical abilities, participating in countless life-and-death battles and still coming out alive, and even recovering very quickly. But clearly Blackbeard is still one of the most special characters to date, possessing 2 devil fruits, both of which are top tier. Yami Yami no Mi, Dark Fruit, Special Logia. Gura Gura no Mi, Quake Fruit, Strongest Paramecia. This power is enough to destroy the world, no kidding. If he reaches the same level of mastery as Whitebeard, it's entirely possible. But the story is, even before having these 2 devil fruits, Jinbei once assessed Teach as an extremely fearsome individual when he was still a crewmate on Whitebeard's ship. And the 3 scars on Shanks' left eye were caused by Teach even before he had a devil fruit. This means from that time, Teach's strength was already eyeing a level close to at least a 1st Division commander, which is how he could injure Shanks when he wasn't being careless. Already strong by nature, and then buffed with 2 overpowered devil fruits, it's true that without even discussing Haki, it's hard for anyone to stand against Teach. If anything, Blackbeard's only weakness is his lack of focus, and just talking so he often gets hit by surprise. But in the end, it's not a big problem, because he's tough as nails. As for Haki, certainly at the Emperor level, mastering and being proficient in armament and observation Haki is too ordinary, everyone can do it. But the problem is, can he use Conqueror's Haki? So far, we haven't seen him actually use it in any battle. But for a character aiming for the throne of the world, possessing this ability is also normal. But if I had to guess, it might only be on par with Luffy or weaker because Teach mostly fights with his devil fruits. Regarding Teach, let's briefly talk about the remaining members. I'll leave the case of Kuzan for last, as he's quite special. Now let's start with Jesus Burgess. Currently possesses the Riki Riki no Mi, Strong fruit, giving him superhuman strength, buffing his inherent physical strength even more. It was shown in the battle with Law by lifting a mountain with one hand and throwing it very far. He can also use both types of Haki, and as to what stage, it's probably advanced. But to be clearer, let's go back to his most memorable battle with Sabo. At that time, Burgess didn't have devil fruit powers, and his Haki was much weaker than Sabo's, which is why his arm guard was easily broken, even though it was coated in Haki. Shiryu. Shiryu of the Rain. One of the most dangerous cards in Blackbeard's hand, formerly the Vice Warden of Impel Down, his strength was second only to Magellan. He was imprisoned on level 6 due to his sick hobby of bathing his sword in the blood of prisoners. He is considered a worthy opponent for Zoro if the 2 crews clash, as he is a very skilled swordsman. Now he is even more dangerous as he possesses the Suke no Mi, Clear fruit, allowing him to become invisible. Already strong, fast, precise, and now invisible. Isn't that too overpowered? I'm afraid if Zoro doesn't awaken his observation Haki to a new level, it will be quite difficult to take down this guy.
Van Augur, the 3rd member, the crew's sniper. Also considered Usopp's opponent if the 2 crews clash. When talking about the Blackbeard pirates, the first thing to mention is devil fruits. The Wapu Wapu no Mi, Warp fruit, is the fruit Augur possesses, giving him the ability to teleport himself or a target he touches to a certain range. It sounds simple, but it's extremely suitable for a sniper, as they need to keep their distance from the enemy to maximize their potential. Among all snipers in One Piece, Augur is currently probably second only to Yasopp in fame. Augur can shoot from a very long distance with absolute accuracy, as seen when he shot down seagulls flying near the Straw Hat ship from Jaya Island, an island that Usopp couldn't even see through binoculars. That's just a brief overview. Lafitte. This guy has almost no information. His devil fruit doesn't have a name yet, but it allows him to have angel-like wings to fly. It's unknown if it's a devil fruit ability or a special ability from his race, but for now, this cat, will consider it a devil fruit. Sengoku, a big name in the Marines, recognized him immediately as this guy's past is also noteworthy.
He looks like a clown but is not useless at all like his appearance. Doc Q, the 5th member, has the Shiku Shiku no Mi, Sick Fruit ability, allowing him to inflict sickness on others. This character hasn't left much of an impression. His physique looks quite weak, but he withstood the shockwave created by Whitebeard. His medical skills are not much inferior to Chopper's. In addition, Doc Q has a powerful warhorse, Stronger, a donkey that possesses the mythical Zoan Ua Ua no Mi model Pegasus. But basically so far, the only power this fruit has shown is growing wings to fly, and this duo hasn't had any highlights, so this cat, don't know what else to say. Avalo Pizarro, the Corrupt King. A prisoner released from level 6 of Impel Down, possessing the Shima Shima no Mi ability, allowing Pizarro to assimilate with an island, controlling its entire structure at will. Because of this, he can control everything that happens on the island. This ability is the only thing we know about Pizarro. To assess it, this power is pretty terrifying because it's an entire island. If you fight on the very island he merges with, the opponent is already at a disadvantage before the battle even starts. San Juan Wolf, the Colossal Warship. Also not much information like Pizarro. Next we have San Juan Wolf, the Giant, who holds the #1 spot in size with a height of 180 meters. But this size doesn't come naturally, but from the Deka Deka no Mi, huge fruit, allowing him to enlarge his body many times over. Katarina Devon, the Crescent Moon Hunter. The next person we have possesses the mythical Zoan Inu Inu no Mi, model Kyubi no Kitsune, 9-tailed fox. The ability allows her to transform into other people, similar to what the Man no Mi can do. But this cat, personally think that's not its only power. She might possess abilities like magic, something very common for this species in Japanese mythology. As for how it will be manifested, we have to wait for Oda. Vasco's Shot, the Heavy Drinker. The last one carrying the Gabu Gabu no Mi, Glug Glug fruit ability, which has powers related to alcohol, like using its flammable properties to launch fire-based attacks. That's the only thing he has used so far. Like most members of the crew, there isn't much information about this guy. Overall assessment of the Blackbeard Pirates' strength. So that's temporarily the basics of the Blackbeard crew's strength. To assess them, all the key members are prisoners from level 6, so saying they're weak is definitely not right, not to mention the overpowered Kuzan. But with their screen time and what the members have shown, I honestly don't find them as impressive as Shanks's crew. But if put on the scale with Luffy's crew, they could be considered a close match. So in terms of strength, I still rate the Blackbeard crew and Luffy's crew as equals, both losing to Shanks. Advantage in the One Piece race. How should I put it? Blackbeard currently possesses a rather questionable card, Pudding, a member of the Three-Eyed Tribe, said to be able to read ancient script, but she herself admitted that because she is mixed blood, she hasn't been able to achieve those abilities yet. It could be a lie, or her power just hasn't been awakened. I don't know, but this will be a minus point for the Blackbeard crew, causing him to only rank 2nd in terms of advantage. Even though everything he possesses seems to be similar to Luffy's, like 3 road poneglyphs for example, one stolen from Big Mom, the other 2 possibly taken from Law, as for information on the ancient weapons, whatever Luffy knows, Caribou also knows. So Blackbeard is covered on this front. The only things left are the person to translate the ancient script and the final slab. As for Blackbeard's ambition is King of the World, the easiest path to that is definitely getting his hands on the One Piece treasure and becoming the Pirate King. At that point, his position in power will be sufficient, and that's when Blackbeard will realize his ambition to be king.
The special variable, Kuzan, Aokiji. I'm sure you masters have been waiting for this, a member of the Blackbeard Pirates who has been singled out as one of the 12 most important people in the final part of the story. It might not be correct, but I, this Mewcat, think that every person appearing here has their own role. Otherwise, Oda wouldn't have separated them and would have just grouped them into their representative force. Kuzan's case is the same. He was once a Marine admiral with an ideal of justice that could be called the standard. And even his joining the Blackbeard Pirates, it's still a mystery. I won't talk too much about this character's strength, because even Blackbeard himself is wary of confronting him. But what I, this Mewcat, want to talk about more deeply is, why was Kuzan separated? And it might be related to why he joined the Blackbeard Pirates. There are also many conspiracy theories that Kuzan is an agent for the revolutionaries or the Marines planted to destroy Blackbeard from within. But with what he's doing, it's possible Kuzan has chosen his own path for his justice, and the Blackbeard Pirates coincidentally gave him the freedom and ideals to do that, so Kuzan agreed to serve under him. But with him being separated like this, could it be that Kuzan himself will be the one to cause the Blackbeard Pirates' downfall later on? Because no matter what, Kuzan is still a person with ideals of justice, protecting the weak, so he doesn't really like pirates all that much. The Revolutionary Force, the Flame of Liberation. Due to the video's scope of only talking about the current information of the forces, I, this Mewcat, can't go too deep into theories, just leaving it there for everyone to discuss. Now to the next force. They don't belong to the three great powers that balance world peace, but the Revolutionary Army is a force with no small influence on the story. And they are also an important force that will decide the fate of the final war.
Revolutionary Forces, the Flame of Liberation. First, let's talk about the Revolutionary Army, led by Monkey D. Dragon, the most dangerous criminal in the government's eyes. They are the most prominent force, directly standing up against the world government and seeking to destroy it, especially the world nobles, celestial dragons, the biggest trash in this world. Most of the Revolutionary Army focuses on liberating islands from the tyrannical control of the authorities. Under the world government's management, it is these liberated people who gather under the revolutionary flag, all becoming forces to stand up with them against the authorities. That is the most basic information about them, because this organization has only recently appeared a bit more. Therefore, the strength of the Revolutionary Army's leaders has not been revealed much to date. For example, Dragon. We have never seen him take action, although with the title, the world's most dangerous criminal, his strength must be on par with an emperor. However, the forces under him are not like that. If they were, they wouldn't have had to move their base from Baltigo to Momoiro after the battle with the Blackbeard Pirates. Commanders like Ivankov, Belobedi, Karasu, Morley, or Lindbergh are strong, yes, but if we're talking about their threat level, how can they compare to the Blackbeard Pirates when Ivankov was only imprisoned on level 5? The others are only around his level at best. Strategy and the people's strength. But the revolutionaries don't fight like pirates, using strength to overwhelm strength. On the contrary, they fight more with weapons and strategy. The proof is that ordinary citizens are also the fighting force of the Revolutionary Army. As long as they share the same ideals, basic combat skills are enough for them to become a part of the Revolutionary Army. The biggest achievement they've gained so far is attacking Mary Jois, causing the world nobles to suffer extremely heavy losses, along with a large number of slaves being freed. It was also from this battle that Sabo's name resounded throughout the world, thanks to holding off 2 Marine admirals at the same time, even though they couldn't use their full power because they were in the Holy Land. So the truth is, if he's very lucky, he can only fight on par with 1 admiral, and he's the second strongest person in the army. So to give the most general assessment of the Revolutionary Army's situation right now, it can be said they are not overly strong in terms of individual strength, but they have specific strategies and calculations, such as cutting off the food supply to the nobles after Mary Jois suffered heavy losses, and attracting more allies to their side to fight the government. Ho Chi Minh once said, "In the sky, nothing is as precious as the people. In the world, nothing is as strong as the united force of the people." Gaining the trust of the people is the greatest strength the Revolutionary Army has. In aiming to eliminate the oppression that exists in One Piece's society, with such a goal, the Revolutionary Army is doing its job very well. And this might be the first spark for the historic-scale war before the One Piece treasure is found. Another variable, Sabo, Flame Emperor. Similar to Kuzan's case just now, this force also has 2 representatives, Dragon and Sabo. Both are definitely representatives of the Revolutionary Army. But this will be a small theory for everyone to discuss. This story must mention Sabo becoming the Flame Emperor, being rated as having a greater influence than even Dragon, and being worshipped by people like a god. Therefore, I, this cat, think separating Sabo has its reasons. Remember this quote,
Old man, the people behind this fire are the royalty and the nobles. Please believe me. This town smells worse than trash. The people here are rotten to the core. If I stay here, I will never be free. I'm ashamed I was ever born a noble." This very quote seemed to give Dragon more motivation to continue his revolutionary ideals, expressed through the line, "You people even force your children to say such things," as if it gave him more motivation that the revolutionary path he was on would succeed. He also said that at that time, he still didn't have enough power to change that corruption. And with Sabo joining, becoming the chief of staff, step by step opening the door to this force's success. What could be more reasonable if the Revolutionary Army overthrows the world government and Sabo is the one who helps everyone in the world gain freedom through his own ways? Not becoming a king, but becoming a guide for people to their own freedom. That is probably also why Oda bestowed upon him the title Flame Emperor and the metaphor of him being like a god.
The Marine Force, pillar of the government. The revolutionaries are done. Now let's get to the Marines. Next, we come to one of the most influential forces in the story, the Marines. Honestly, this force has always been the same. It's just been buffed in strength gradually along with the power progression of the characters in the story. Like, before there was no Haki, now there is Haki. Before the admirals would wreck the supernovas, but now they're a bit more evenly matched with Luffy or Kuzan, former admiral, making Teach piss his pants. So, discussing the Marines' forces might be a bit redundant. But since they've appeared with Kobe and Akainu as representatives, how can we not talk about them? Within the scope of this video, this cat will only mention the current strength of the admirals and fleet admiral, but just briefly, the details will be saved for a bigger slot. First, Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, Akainu, owner of the Magu Magu no Mi ability, an extremely strong Logia fruit. This man's achievements include his solo fight with Whitebeard. Although he didn't win, even against the world's strongest man, Akainu wasn't scared or completely overwhelmed, and still managed to wound him severely. Especially after the time skip, having been promoted to Fleet Admiral, Sakazuki is currently the strongest person in the Marines. Because Garp has been captured, Sengoku retired, who else can be stronger than him? With his strength, if put in a one-on-one match with an Emperor, this cat thinks Akainu would most likely win if it's not Shanks. Against Shanks, it would be a draw. Because look, Kuzan made Blackbeard panic when he unleashed his power, and who was it that made Kuzan leave the Marines? It was Sakazuki. So, using the transitive property, bridging logic, we can deduce that. Of course, the ranks of Admiral and Fleet Admiral are reserved for the monsters of the Marines. They're not to be trifled with, right? If they didn't have such strength, how could they become one of the three great powers that maintain the world's balance?
The three current admirals. Next, we have the three remaining admirals, Kizaru, Fujitora, and Ryokugu Green Bull. Among them, Green Bull is currently rated as the weakest after all his troll moments, like being paralyzed by Shanks' Haki or losing to the Nine Red Scabbards and Momo and failing to defend Mary Giawaz. Although his strength probably isn't weak, what he's shown so far doesn't really make him seem worthy of that position. Fujitora is different. He had a fiery solo fight with Sabo, the Revolutionary Army's number 2. Even though he didn't really go all out either time, he easily suppressed the law and defeated Jack when he tried to rescue Doflamingo, which is a bit of an assumption as Sengoku was also on the ship, but this cat thinks Fujitora is more than capable of taking down Jack. And Kizaru recently had a solo fight with Luffy, also considered evenly matched, neck and neck. That's also the basis for why this cat rates Akainu so highly, meaning an admiral is fully capable of fighting one-on-one with an emperor. They might not win, but they can't be completely defeated either. Not to mention the vice admirals and other marines are not weak either. So if an emperor's crew had to clash with the marines, they would need a large army to fight on even terms. Because if the Straw Hat crew fought the entire marines, it would be hard to win. The Whitebeard pirates were that strong. And even after calling so many allies, they couldn't save Ace. So what makes you think a 10-person crew can take on this entire force? Saying that is enough to understand how strong this faction is, right? This is also the biggest obstacle on the Emperor's journey to obtain the One Piece treasure. If the war for One Piece truly breaks out and the Marines intervene, it will be a battle 1,000 times more epic than the Whitebeard War of the past.
The Special Force Sword. Marines are done, now it's time to talk about Sword. This is a special force consisting of Marines who have resigned from the official chain of command, so they can act on their own without following orders, but the Marines will not protect them from any danger. So far, this organization has only had 6 official names revealed: Kobe, Helmeppo, Hibari, Kujaku, Gruss, and Drake. Their strength is only at a decent level or higher, not enough to be called a real problem yet. But their role has many variables because they pursue true justice. This means, in the event the Revolutionary Army overthrows the world nobles, SWORD could completely be a supporting force because they themselves understand how corrupt they are, or they will help anyone in trouble. The fact that Kobe had no ill intentions when he went to see Boa and wanted to negotiate, aiming for peace rather than combat, or how Drake chose to help Luffy save Wano instead of fighting and capturing them. This means in certain cases, they are willing to join hands with pirates if it's for a good cause. So to really guess this organization's role, this cat has no idea. There's too little information.
The World Government Force. The final force, Imu and St. Garling, are the 2 individuals representing the world government. First, an overview of the government's forces. It is a conglomerate of over 170 allied nations around the world, formed from an alliance of 20 kingdoms 800 years ago, which has grown strong as it is today. It is directly ruled by a council called the Gorosei, 5 elders, and in the 12 main characters, St. Garling is representing them, the Holy Knights. The person truly at the top of the world government is Imu-sama, a character we know nothing about so far besides his silhouette and his power. The strength of this force is basically the strength of everything in the One Piece world except for pirates and revolutionaries. From the Marines to the Cipher Pol agents and the allied nations, all are forces of the world government. Cipher Pol, CP0. Let's skip the Marines since we've talked about them. Now we'll mention the 5 elders and Cipher Pol, the strongest and most special forces directly under the government. Cipher Pol is a secret agency specializing in investigation, espionage, and assassination for the world government, ranging from 0 to 9. But there's no need to pay too much attention, as currently only CP0 is truly influential. They are the ones who act directly on the orders of the world nobles, meaning they are responsible for protecting the nobles and carrying out orders given by the 5 elders related to world-shaking events. Basically, most of this team currently consists of promotions from CP9. Luffy is considered the strongest, but he couldn't beat Luffy, an emperor, and even lost to Zoro, his right-hand man. This means this group's strength is probably only on par with high-level commanders at best, like Jack or Cracker, for example.
The 5 elders, Gorosei. But the real power to talk about is the 5 old monsters, Gorosei, with their overpowering and abnormal strength throughout the Egghead battle. No one has even managed to leave any serious injuries on them. They all seem to possess indestructible bodies that cannot be destroyed. No matter how severe the wound, it regenerates immediately, accompanied by unexplained special abilities. Those are their transformed forms, all of which are mythical creatures. Although not yet precisely identified, it's almost certain they all come from devil fruits and are fully awakened. And of course, if Saturn possesses Conqueror's Haki, the others can't be lacking it either. Having reached such a level, the story of using Haki is probably no longer a topic for discussion. The problem is, the solution to defeating the 5 of them is completely unknown. They can be considered immortal warriors, with combat power on par or even stronger than an emperor. With all those supernatural things, it's not hard to understand why the government has existed for so long, because who is strong enough to beat these guys? Even the Nika fruit, the most ridiculous power in One Piece, doesn't make these old men afraid. The fight is evenly matched, sure, but can he kill them? Get injured? They just regenerate and keep fighting. Only Luffy gets tired, they don't. I don't understand how Oda will solve this problem.